Thank you for clicking on another Rose City Reptiles video. I'm Joey, this is Rose City Reptiles. Now let's get started. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how we raise our baby Tegus right at the start. I'm going to show you a product that you absolutely cannot live without if you want to raise reptiles, Tegus specifically, successfully. So let's get into it. Before we jump right into that, let me go ahead and show you guys something that happened last night with the Gargoyle Geckos. We had one of our very best blotch gargoyles lay eggs last night. So let's get in here. I saw her right in this area. At least I think there was eggs. She was definitely digging right here. So let's see what we find. I bet they're under this log. Oh, look. There's some eggs right there. Awesome, awesome. Let me set the camera down and get those out of there. Look at that. She gave us some beautiful eggs. Really big eggs for gargoyle geckos. So I'm going to get those set up in the egg box container, and however many days they decide to incubate, we'll have some beautiful babies. So here are the eggs set up in the lay box, or in the, where we incubate our gargoyle gecko eggs. So these are them right there. Now look at, this is one from the same female that is really due to hatch like any second. Let me just set it next to it. Look at that. That is how much the eggs grow over a few months. So these ones were from today. That one is from April, the end of April, like April 30th. So look at the size difference there. Huge difference. So I wanted to show you guys Mom. This is the female that laid those eggs last night. And isn't she, I mean, she's amazing. Her colors are just incredible. She would be considered a red blotch, maybe a super blotch, because all of her blotches are, most of them are touching each other. I think that's the basis people use, but to me she's just a blotch, and she is just amazing. Let's put her back in here. And look at how healthy she is. You can't even tell that she really laid eggs. I mean, she's still thick, still looking great. So let's let her go back in here, back to hiding. But just beautiful. Love that girl so much. Here's the male that she was bred to. I almost didn't show him because he's not really showing his colors right now, but this is him. This is Monte Cristo. This guy's looking good as well. Great breeder. They should make some pretty cool babies. Not sure if they'll make blotches or stripes or both, but they should definitely have some nice red coloring and good structure. So very excited about those babies. Okay, so the number one item that you absolutely have to have, there's no way around this. You have to have this. And everyone that buys a baby Tegu from me, when they're setting up their enclosure, I always ask, do you have one of these? And that is an infrared thermometer. You absolutely cannot care for reptiles unless you have one of these. What this does is it reads the surface temperature. That's a big difference from the ambient temperature in the enclosure. A regular thermometer can read that. You need one of these to read the surface temperature. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So the ambient temperature in this room is 81. Now I'm going to use this infrared thermometer to read the surface temperature of my hand. And that is 91.5. So the ambient temperature of the room is 81. The surface temperature of my hand is 91.5. So that is one of the important, very important things that you need when you are setting up the enclosure, and just to check your parameters as time goes on. So infrared thermometer. I'm gonna have a link in the description that shows you exactly where you can get one. So if you don't have one, get one now. Also, a good way to check your infrared heat gun and make sure that it's accurate is to do what I just did. Check the temperature of the palm of your hand. Your palm of your hand should be around 90 degrees. So that's what I do to check my heat gun and make sure that it's reading accurate. I also have two heat guns, and I use them both, so they kind of check each other. So get two if you're kind of crazy like me and like to make sure things are accurate, but a good test is just test the palm of your hand, about 90 degrees. So here's the outside of the enclosure. It's, you know, a 4-stack. Right now, just this top one is set up. The size of this enclosure is 4x2. That's what we raise our baby tegus in before we move them into something bigger. So we start with the 4x2. Now let's go ahead and check out the inside of the enclosure. Okay, first things first, our basking light. For a basking light, for this enclosure, I mean, there's so many different kinds of lights you can use. I would say one of the most important things is your temperature. So the temperatures that we raise our baby tegus at is, now again, this is surface temperature, so this is the basking temperature, not the ambient temperature. So for the basking temperature, we use 115 to 120 degrees. So right here on this rock, it will heat up to 115 to 120. Now, the ambient temperature on the hot side of the enclosure, so that's going to be this water bowl and up, is going to be right around 90 degrees, okay? Then we're going to have a gradient. It's going to go from 90 as the ambient temperature, it's going to go all the way back, and it's going to be about 78, 80 degrees underneath this hide here. So, again, this is a big view of the enclosure. It's a 4x2. I do have a large hide over here that the baby tegus can get under. A little piece of cork bark that goes into their water bowl, and then their basking stone. So that's the basics on how we have the enclosure set up. Now back to the lighting. So floodlight, it's going to be different watts for different enclosures. This is not a very tall enclosure. It was built just for the babies. So it is just a 65 watt floodlight. So the important thing, the important takeaway there is to get a floodlight. Do not get a spotlight. It will burn your animal. So floodlight is 100% necessary. So make sure you get a floodlight so it's safe for your animal. Again, and then something else we use for our UVB. We use the ZoomEd ReptiSun 10.0. So this is just the 24-inch, goes across there. I believe that is very important, especially for baby tegus. And this is a brand new bulb, just put in about a week ago when I got this enclosure set up for the babies that are going to be hatching out soon. Now for the substrate, I actually already did a video on that. It's a mixture between peat moss, sand, and topsoil. So it's an even mixture, 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. I'll put a card in the description right now so you can see exactly how we make this, but it works perfectly at holding these nice little microclimates, and it holds burrows really well, and the tegus do fantastic in it. Now we all know that baby tegus shed a lot, and I get so many questions. I see it all the time on Facebook and different places. People are having problems with their tegus shedding. I think a big reason is because, now don't attack me, you guys are going to find this to be kind of alarming, but I believe that we're keeping the humidity too high all the time. So let me explain a little bit about that. If you are having shedding issues and you're constantly soaking your tegu and spraying down the enclosure, you're trying to do the right thing, but you're still having these issues. So what I have found that works really well is actually having a dry out period. So when your tegu goes in the shed, letting it dry out a bit in the enclosure. Now let me show you how we've kind of, when we built these enclosures, are, you know, something that we did to help us out with that. Over here, so here's our basking platform, and right up against this wall, it's just screen. Okay, it's like a pet safe nylon screen, but it allows a lot of ventilation. Now I have a board that I put up right here, and it blocks all of this off. Okay, so this is not open all the time. But to dry out the substrate and have that dry out period to help out with sheds, especially if there's like a problem shed going on, which really doesn't happen very often, but if it does, I take that board off, allow heavy ventilation, dry this out a bit, and boom, that shed comes right off. So there might be a time and place where a bath is necessary, but I never give my Tegus baths. Now the babies, I will soak them just for hydration, just to make sure they're getting something to drink, and that's whenever I really like socialize with them. But I never do it because they need it to shed. So that probably goes much, you probably hear much differently when you're asking people online or, you know, things like that. If you tell your average person that you're having shedding problems, they're going to tell you to soak your Tegu. I'm going to tell you to do the exact opposite. Actually, let the enclosure dry out a bit before you add in any more moisture or humidity. So keep that in mind. Also, when you're letting it dry out, let it dry out for like 24 hours and then soak down the enclosure again. Not to where it's soaking wet, but just enough to where you can see that fog build up on your glass and really build up that humidity again. So, and that is when your Tegu shed will pop off. So let it dry out 24 hours and then spray it down again, and you'll see, it'll do the trick. Now, a couple things to keep in mind when setting up your enclosure. I keep this slate, I keep it completely flat on the bottom. There's no substrate underneath it, and that's just to prevent the Tegus from digging underneath this heavy stone. If you only have one Tegu, you can, you know, set up some bricks underneath it and give it a place to burrow underneath the hot side. But I'm gonna have a lot of babies in here, and I don't like moving anything heavy around the babies, because when you've got 10 to 15 in here, it's just an accident waiting to happen. So this is completely flat on the ground. They will not be able to dig underneath it. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. Another thing is, I keep the water bowl flat on the ground. It's, you know, it's kind of moving right now because there's no water in it, but this needs changed out. Your water, even with one Tegu, it's going to need changed out at least every day. With the babies, I change it out usually 3 times a day, sometimes more. So be ready to do a lot of water changes. They love to climb in and out, and it gets full of dirt very fast, or they'll all work together and flip it over. So some people say a happy Tegu is a dirty Tegu, and it's true. I mean, they love the dirt, they love the water, they're very active. So keep that in mind. Sometimes people put a brick in here so they don't flip it over. That works too, nothing wrong with that. I do have this in here so they can climb out easily, but I keep it very shallow. I mean, I only put like this much water in it at first, so they can get in and out easily, no risk of them drowning or anything like that. So just a little recap on the enclosure size. I start them off in a 4x2. Okay, you can start them off in something a little smaller, but a 4x2 is what I find works best. And then be ready to upgrade them. These guys have the potential to grow extremely fast, so make sure you are prepared and planning and ready for their adult enclosure. Adult enclosure, at the very least, the very smallest I would go is a 6x3x3. That's the smallest. I think best, if they're indoors, is 8x4x4. So be prepared for that. That's going to be right around the corner. It's actually a ton of fun. Setting up their enclosures is one of the best parts of owning any reptile. So be excited about it, and yeah, it can be a lot of fun. So the absolutely most important thing to keep in mind when setting up your new Tegu is the temperatures. It's very, very important. It's completely vital to their health. If your temperatures aren't right, you're going to know it because you're going to see it in the behavior of your Tegu. So just to recap, 115 to 120 for their basking temperature. Okay, that is the surface temperature. You're gonna measure that with your infrared temperature gun. And then for the ambient temperature on the warm side, 90 degrees to 95. It can be 90 to 95 on the warm side, and that's gonna have a temperature gradient to your cool side that's gonna go to like 75 to 80. So if your Tegu has a low appetite and is kind of lethargic, well, check your temperatures. Check your temperatures. That is the first thing anyone's gonna tell you. If you message me and you say, hey, my Tegu's not eating, I'm gonna say, what is your temperature and what are you reading it with? So make sure you have that heat gun. Otherwise, I can't help you. I'm gonna say, go get one, order one. Because I can't help you. That's the only way to measure that temperature. So make sure you have a heat gun and then I'm gonna ask you, what's your temperatures and what are you measuring it with? Because those are just so important. So at the time of making this video, we're only like 4 or 5 days away from having some hatchlings. I mean, so that really means it could be any time. I mean, they could go late, it could be a week, or it could be right now. I'm looking at the incubator back here. Where is it? Right there. Could be right now, who knows? So subscribe. You definitely do not want to miss the Tegu hatching video that's going to be coming out soon. I haven't created it yet because there are no babies, but they will be coming soon, and you better believe we're going to make a video about that. So I'm so excited. Next time you guys see this enclosure, it will be full of little babies running around. So get pumped. Tegu season, hatchling season is now. I mean, it is. It's coming. It's this week. By this weekend, possibly. So I couldn't be more excited. I check the incubator like too many times a day. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe, join the Rose City Reptiles family, and like this video. If you know of some products that I didn't mention, I only mentioned that heat gun because it is, to me, it's the most important product that I see so many people not own when they keep reptiles. And so I really wanted to feature that product, but if you have some other products that you think are very important, drop them in the comments below, and if I see a comment with several items that I really like, then I'll pin it to the top to help out other people when they are getting ready to bring home one of my Tegus or someone else's or any reptile. So yeah, this is the basics of how I raise these babies. Just at the end, if you're still here, let me know if you made it to the end. Something else is I do take my babies outside. So I have those tubs that I built for young grow out Tegus. I'll put a card right now. And at a couple weeks old, I do start actually 1 week old, I start taking them outside for a couple reasons. One, natural UVB is great for them. Two, I try to get them accustomed to being outside. So when you get your Tegu, if you start working on that as well right away, it's going to be better for them if you plan on taking them outside once they're older. So just continue to work on that. And so I always try to get that foundation started for people that get a Tegu from me, because it's fun to have Tegus outside and they love it as well. But thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Join us. This is about to be full of babies. I'm pumped. I better sign off here. I'll keep talking all day to you guys. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.